very luckily, had the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with the editor of the film, Mark Day. So let's see what he had to say. Mark Day, welcome to Harry Potter, the official film podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Half-Blood Prince is such a brilliant film, and it is doing so much all at once. So when you first looked at the material, what did you feel was like the real spine of the film?
Well, actually, obviously, it's all about Snape, isn't it? And but also, I love Slughorn. I love Horace Slughorn. I think he's such a great character, and Jim Broadbent played him so well. And in fact, when they first meet him, you know, when Harry and Dumbledore go and meet him, and they walk into the room, and he's that kind of armchair, which I love it. I watched it the other day again, and it really made me laugh. It's just so funny.
And it really balances the comedy, the tragedy, the drama. It does get incredibly dark. So how did you find the balance between all of those tonal shifts in the edit?
Well, that's interesting because we, you know, obviously David Yates and I, we've worked together for 25 years. And then he was offered Order of the Phoenix, which was unbelievable and incredible. And it was a real huge learning curve. And then by the second one, Half-Blood Prince, you know, we got into our groove a bit. You know, David is such a wonderful director and great with actors, and he gives me such great material. And then I start putting it together, obviously, when he's shooting. And then by the end of the shoot, I've got the whole film together. And then we work together very closely. And that's where we find the rhythm of each scene, you know, and what we need to take out and what we need to expand or change. And that's where we find the darkness and the light together.
I think what I especially love is that you do give these like teenage moments time to breathe in the Half-Blood Prince, and we see all of the actors like really getting to like stretch their comedy chops. It's like especially like Rupert Grint and like Jesse Cave with Lavender and Ron. And it's so lovely. So how much of that comedy is sort of found or sharpened in the edit?
Quite a lot of it. I mean, obviously, Ron Weasley, you know, Rupert is he's a kind of natural comedian. He's so good and so natural. I had no problem with him at all. Lavender was fantastic. I'd never seen her before, but she was so good. And also, I'll tell you the other lovely scene I liked was the dinner scene. And you get that kind of Cormac McLagan, you know, eyeing up Hermione, which is hilarious. You know, a lovely scene, just so beautifully directed by David. You know, he gives me all this wonderful footage, which I can then just play with as you watch the film over and over again. At first, because when I first put a scene together, you know, it feels really good to me and I'm happy to show David. And then down the line, 3-4 months down the line, you look at it and you think, oh my God, it's taking so long to say what we want to hear. So then you start tightening things up, losing lines or whatever, or parachuting into a scene halfway through or leaving it, you know, before the end or whatever. You know, you only learn that by watching the film over and over and over again, 1 million times. You know, it really, there's no shortcut to a fine cut. That's what I've always said. There really isn't. You have to watch it over and over again to see what you can take out, and people will still understand what's going on with the plot.
In The Half-Blood Prince, the cave sequence is one of the film's sort of biggest set pieces, but it's also incredibly intimate because it's Harry and Dumbledore, just those two. It's a real two-hander. So can you remember like what you were thinking about the pacing of that sequence and also how to bring in the horror elements as well?
I definitely can remember that because that was very time-consuming yet again. Because they shot so much, you know, David shot so much and Stephen Warford and the second unit director shot a lot as well. So I was getting tons and tons of footage. So eventually, after many, many weeks, we started jump cutting Harry going to get the liquid. So that's what you do. You end up doing that, but you can't do that straight away. It's not, I mean, maybe some people could, but we couldn't work out a way of doing it until we'd kind of watch it over and over again. And we worked out, well, it's just taking too long. So what should we do? We'll jump it. We'll jump cut. Harry going and Dumbledore saying, you know, no more kind of thing. And then you've got that beautiful, quiet moment, you know, but when Harry, after he's given him he's drunk it all. And then Harry puts a Lumos on and then he goes down to the edge to get water when Dumbledore's asking for water. And you get that incredibly brilliant shock you know, when
the
that
jump scare.
Yeah, exactly.
So interesting you're talking about the jump cuts, because as Harry is sort of backing away from the infrared, he's like walking backwards up the quartz kind of dais.
Yeah.
And that's also kind of jump cuts as well,
yeah, it is.
which I hadn't
that's
really
what I'm
realized.
talking about. Yeah. So jump it to give
so
you
effective.
that kind of, you know, he's in turmoil. By jump cutting, you get that Harry's turmoil. It's great.
Yes, it really shows like the sort of inner disturbance of him.
Exactly.
I've seen some really lovely footage of Dan Radcliffe coming into your editing suite and sort of like being really interested in learning all about it. So how involved did the actors get, or how interested were they in what you were doing, considering, you know, that's so kind of far removed from what they're having to do?
So Dan was great. He was really interested in editing and just wanted to find out what I got up to, really. It's funny, the edit, because we're not on set most of the time, you know, we're not, editors aren't, they're in their cutting room, in the womb-like security of the cutting room. And, you know, so they don't really know what editors do. Actually, a lot of people don't understand what editors do. They just think you just cut the boards off and it just falls together. Yeah. But it doesn't. It's such a long process and you know, it's so infinite. You're looking at all these performances, you're choosing the takes you want to use, where you want to go on various lines. You know, so it's an intriguing process, and I absolutely love it, obviously, and I've been doing it for quite a few years now. And between you and David Yates, you must have been the very last people to work on the very last minutes of the very last film. So what was that experience like, sort of having to say goodbye to this after so many years and literally having your fingerprints were the last ones on it? We'd worked on it for 5 years. Someone like David Heyman had been on it for 10 years or 11, whatever it was, 12 years, you know, a long, long time. So it was incredibly emotional. It was a wonderful time. And I actually, you know, I can't tell you how wonderful it was to work on Harry Potter and be part of it, because it's world renowned. It's like the Beatles, you know, Beatles, Harry Potter, Coca-Cola. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just world renowned and people love it. And quite rightly, because they are such good films. And I'm looking forward to, you know, the TV series. It will be really interesting to see what they do with it. Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been so lovely to hear your stories. Oh, thank you.